All right, everybody. So today we're going to be looking at why adding metadata into RAG systems and RAG vector databases is so important and the impact that it has, and also especially how to actually do it. We'll go into some workflows and show you exactly how it's done. But starting off with the actual impact and its importance, I have a little pyramid here, and we can see we're going to start with least important, why it is actually pretty important, all of it. And so starting with number 4, system performance and analytics, this is already pretty important. Actually, thinking about it might be more important than 3, but this is to essentially debug. So when something goes wrong, you can see, okay, exactly where, for example, did something go wrong, what file was it, what chunk was it. You can see that all in the metadata. Or what part of the file was it especially. And also being able to then automatically, for example, take a file out of a Google Drive folder, as long as it's connected with the RAG, and then all of the chunks that are connected with that file ID, for example, being deleted automatically. And I'll show you exactly how to do this later. Now, third most impactful about adding metadata is the fact that you can add sources and citations. Now, you can, for example, in an LLM answer, tell the AI to add the source and specific quote that it got the answer from. And you can do this with metadata very, very easily. Then second is essentially time travel, or more accurately, recency. Just being able to check, okay, if you say in a quarterly report, give me the specific answers for Q3. If it has access to 20 quarterly reports, it might just give you access to 3 random Q3s and tell you answers for these. But if you want it to be the most recent Q3, which it most likely would be, you could add a filter into the chunk callbacks that essentially says only give it for this time frame. And that essentially makes the amount of data you get so much more close, so much more tight-knit, and more accurate. And then also especially precision and hallucination prevention. Naturally, the most important part about adding metadata into RAG is just that you can create so much more information. You can add you can add the metadata itself into the output. You can add it into the metadata only and have ChatGPT look at that and make sure, okay, we're filtering for this, let's check here. It's just so much clearer for an LLM to see, okay, what is the actual data. It assists in retrieval itself as well from services like Supabase. Is just really, really handy all around. By far the most impactful, followed by recency, then by sourcing and citations, and maybe on the same level, just being able to check system performance and delete or update chunks for any certain file that you have, for example, in a Google Drive. And now looking at how this really works and why it's important, let's imagine first not having an embedding. Let's imagine first not having metadata and only using the vectors. This is still very good, but kind of chaotic, because as you can see here in the left image, if you're looking for a needle in a haystack, the vector will sort of go over the needle with a magnet, go over the entire haystack with a magnet, but there's going to be more things that it gets. It'll get some rusty nails, some clippings, all these different things along with the needle. And with all of this, you can't really be sure, okay, are these answers really specifically for this answer? Or are they sounding very similar? Are they in the same area or in a different area, but with same words, but mean something completely different or give you a different output in the end, or the wrong answers? And so what metadata and vector together here does is just give you precision. It gives you the ability to say, hey, look, I only want to find stuff in this specific area, which metaphorically you can look at it only looking at a specific door, a haystack that only has this one needle and no rusty nails, nothing else, and then be able to look in that form. And that is what makes metadata so important and effective. And now let's actually look at how to implement this in a workflow itself. All right, so we're now in our workflow that essentially lets you auto-upload files to our Google Drive, especially markdown files, into a specific folder, and these then get auto-translated and put into the Supabase vector store. Now, I will be doing a video in the following days on how exactly that works, and you can download it as well for yourself. However, the main important thing is that we're going to go over now is this little node here. So after we go through the entire workflow and you get a bunch of different outputs, you put everything together here in this little set node, which gives you two main items. Text item, which is essentially the title of the specific part of the document, and then the context, which is GPT generated or just any AI generated context. And then you from there on get the main part, which is the actual content, which you can see here. You can see the single biggest risk, etc. You can see the actual text that it takes, which is the chunk. And now we come to metadata, which for us right now is the most interesting. You can see here you have the title, you have the section index, the document name. You can see anything that you really want, the source. You can see the file ID, which is later on really good for deletion. And all this essentially goes in when you put it into your Supabase vector store here, and then you can see it here. Now, we used a pretty bad document. This was just a quick AI generated document I used to create something that we could use. However, if you look, you have your context here, which is the main content that, for example, an AI is going to use when it looks over your things. So this has executive summary, your little overview of what the chunk is about right here, and then you have the main content. And then obviously we also have the second part, which is the exact same, just a bit longer because the document is set up this way. Usually what you would do is set up a good markdown file that has a bunch of headings and do it that way. We don't have it here, but that's not a big issue. That's something you can easily do yourself. Now, most importantly, we have our metadata. You can see this is all auto-generated. This is always there. But as soon as we get here to this field, metadata, that is all ours. You have our lines, from which line to what line the chunk actually goes. You have our source, our file ID, chunk ID, hash, document name, everything you could need essentially to figure out, or to have also an AI figure out, okay, what now do I really need? What can I filter for? And also, when you see a chunk that is wrong, for example, that shouldn't be there or something went wrong, you can look, okay, well, this is from the document here. It's specifically from this chunk ID 0, which would mean it's in the very beginning. The source, obviously, from the Google Drive. You can see anything that you want. It's specifically even the lines are shown to you. And that's what makes everything so much easier with this metadata. It just lets you essentially take an already good output and just perfect it so that nothing can go wrong. And that's where this really comes in handy, and why I really, really like using metadata, and why I started doing it recently in pretty much every single project that I've done chatbot-wise, and even voice agent-wise. And yeah, exactly. I would really recommend using it yourself. I hope this video has helped you and has let you realize how good it is, how important metadata is, and also will let you do it in the future. If you need help with this, we are always happy to help clients. We're always happy to help companies work and improve their workflows with metadata, improve their chatbot systems, or create chatbots from the beginning that use metadata tools, etc., that really help your customer experience for your stores, etc., whatever you sell, just go to that next level. And that is really what we want to achieve. And if we can even help one company get that, then we have achieved our goal. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next video, where I will be explaining how all of this works and how you can implement it into your own company.